Okay guys, somehow I managed to delete all the audio off this video or not get it on at all. I have no clue how I do these things. It's going to drive me crazy. What I'm explaining here is that I had started this sourdough the day before. I had to refeed my starter. I had only a little bit of starter left to start the bread. And so I got that all together, and then we were invited out for supper. So I put the leaven in the fridge overnight after it had sat out for quite a few hours during the day. But I wasn't going to be up all night baking bread. So I threw it in the fridge, hoping it would still be okay, and this is the next morning. So this is the starter I put together the day before. I was really worried because when I took out enough to make the loaf of bread I wanted to make, there was just a thin coating of starter left on the inside of that container. But I went ahead and fed it anyway, and it worked perfectly. So you really don't need a lot to keep this going. The other thing is I hadn't used that starter in almost a month. It was not since Christmas. It sat in my fridge, I hadn't fed it once, and it worked beautifully. So my leaven had been in the fridge overnight. I'm now just getting ready to make the bread. The leaven bubbled up, it was great. Now I'm just getting ready to put the dough together, and with this dough there are, I think, 6 or 7 different things I'm adding in that I don't typically put in my sourdough. There were 25 grams each of rolled oats, pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, and flax seeds. I will put the recipe down below, and they had to be soaked for an hour before you could use it in the bread. So I'm going to measure out those seeds and soak them in 100 grams of water in a separate bowl. And I'll be back after the hour to put this bread together. Okay guys, so we're going to go ahead with this recipe. I am just going to fill up my tea. So like I said, I'm using my regular sourdough recipe. So I'm going to put my leaven into my bowl. And I'm going to put 100 grams less water in than usual because we soak those seeds in 100 grams of water, and I can always add more water if the dough is too stiff. So I'm going to put 215. Typically the recipe is 315 grams. I'm going to stir that with my leaven. I'm going to add 200 grams of whole wheat. And as I've said before, I kind of keep it all in the middle and let it pile up so that if I go over, there's dry flour to take out. Okay, 200, and then 400 grams of all-purpose flour. This is why I pile it up. There we go. And I made a mess on the floor. And 2 teaspoons of salt. Going to get more salt. Okay, and almost forgot. The seeds and oats. Plus we have more seeds to add. So they did not have to be soaked because they are just tiny and they don't absorb much water, where the, I don't know that the pumpkin would either, but the flax sure does. The oats do. So I'm adding 10 grams of each one of these. So I've got hemp seed. Put that on there, tare it to 0. And this is just 10 grams. $10 grams of hemp. It'll be a little more because this is wet for some reason. $10 grams of sesame. And 10 grams of poppy seed. I did find them. I knew I had them. So they are going in here. And I'm using my mixer just because it's easier on my shoulder. You don't have to have a mixer. You could stir this by hand. Just gonna get it kind of all mixed in there a bit. That's what it looks like so far. Hard to see anything, but I'll be back. Okay, so I did put in another 30 grams of water, and it probably could use a little more, but I think it'll be fine. It's definitely not harder than my other dough. I'd probably put in an extra 50 grams. Anyway, you can see the seeds in it, all through it. It's all mixed in. I love seeds and stuff in bread. All right, so this will sit now until it is, well, I have to do stretch and folds. You can watch, I'll link one of my other videos up above that show the stretch and folds. I will do it 3 times, half an hour in between each time, and then let it sit until, I mean, it'll probably take 5 hours maybe, but we'll see. I go by the feel, and if it's, how much it's risen, what it feels like. You can poke it and do kind of a proofing test, and then we'll bake it up. So this is the bread. So it's split. I will, when it warms up, I will pinch that back together before I put it in the pot. It sat most of the day, and then I formed the loaf and put it in the fridge overnight because that gives it a bigger sourdough flavor. So this is my Banneton, and it actually rose beautifully yesterday, so I'm quite excited. So I'm leaving it out at room temperature. I'm going to cover it again. I'm heating up the oven right at the moment. So this is the bread out of the oven. I just took it out. It turned out pretty good. I'm going to take it out and put it on the rack so you can see the whole thing. And there you go. It turned out beautiful. It's huge. It looks so good. And when it cools down, we'll slice into it and see what it looks like on the inside. It's crusty, but it's tender. I am in love with this alteration to my recipe. And there you go. So it's nice and warm, it's light, and full of seeds.